I talk about 5 phases of scaling your business. So there's a couple models that just are not scalable. And so if you are the operator, if you're the one that is delivering your product or service, you cannot scale that.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Perfectly Mentored. I'm your host, Jason Portnoy. You're about to check out my interview with the super smart Allison Maslan, who's the CEO of Pinnacle Global Network. She was a Wall Street Journal bestselling author of Scale or Fail and has built 10 successful companies, her first one while she was only 19 years old. Her client lists include Ben & Jerry's, Supercuts, Merrill, Lynch, and Allstate. Now she and her team of CEO mentors pay it forward by helping business owners scale their companies, fast track their success, and create more meaningful lives. Allison's been featured in all the magazines, Inc., Success, Fortune, Fast Company, Forbes, and is a contributor for Entrepreneur Magazine. She is also the producer and host of the Scale or Fail Show podcast and the Women Who Own It podcast in partnership with WBENC, which is the largest certifier of women-owned businesses in North America. It was an absolute pleasure to have her here. Enjoy the podcast. Allison, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. Really appreciate having you here.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Let's get a quick crash course on your background, your entrepreneurial journey, and how you became, the scaling expert, as well as your company now, Pinnacle Global Network. What does it do?
Yeah, so I was raised in a very entrepreneurial family. My father, starting with my grandfather in 1955, but grew the largest privately owned women's clothing chain up to the early 80s. So I was really raised in this very entrepreneurial energy that if you want something, just go make it happen, do it yourself. And so I started my first business when I was 19, and I've built 10 companies over the last 37 years now in business. So, I've had a lot of hard knocks along the way. I've hit a lot of walls. And in my early entrepreneurial days, I did not know how to scale. I was working night and day. I didn't understand the systems and the underpinnings really needed to grow an enterprise without killing yourself. And so by going through this in my early years, I said there really has to be an easier way for entrepreneurs to understand, how did these companies like Ben & Jerry's, like Merrill Lynch, like how do you build these enterprises? Because they all started with one person or two people and an idea, just like everybody else. And so I happened to be, some of these companies were my clients, like Ben & Jerry's was a client of mine. And so I began to really understand the structure and what was needed. So I put this, what I call the scale it method formula together many years ago. And of course, it's evolved a lot over time and technology and so forth. But it's really life-changing when you understand the trajectory of building a business that ultimately can run without you. Building a team-managed company. And it's very opposite of what we usually hear, like grind it out, work 24/7. And, that ends up with all kinds of health challenges, divorces, great, I'm making money, I'm miserable. So, and I've been there. I know what that's like. And so Pinnacle Global Network really came out of that. That's my 10th company. And for the last, we're going on our 11th year, we've been mentoring business owners anywhere from the high 6 figures up to, about 80 million in revenue on growing and scaling their company. We work with CEOs all over the world. And I have a team of 14 coaches who have all run very successful companies themselves. And we work with our clients to help them to scale their company and set up a business that they can leave for a good period of time and it continues to grow and evolve without them, or to help them sell, whatever the goal is.
I love that, but I want to talk about the word scaling because it's a term that gets thrown around a lot.
Yes.
Let's scale. I'll scale your business. We help businesses scale. Look, I'm a marketer. I'm guilty of overusing that word a lot too.
Yes.
So let's
Yes.
talk. What does scaling a business mean to you? Is it just about revenue? Like, what does scaling actually mean?
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that up because it is really overused, misused. And in my book, Scale or Fail, I really go into this. The idea of scaling is that you are replicating your offering so that you can multiply it well beyond you. And so that you're continuing to grow on your top line and your bottom line without growing your expenses at the same rate. So for it to scale, you have to have a multiplier. So whether that is, and there are many, many ways to scale. So for instance, it could be that you have one location and then you franchise it. It could be that you create a membership program. And so it's this idea of what's your one to many. How do you take the same time, energy, effort, money, and then multiply that to many potential customers at one time? And then on the team side, it's like, how do you replicate your genius, and have others, train them or certify them or license them? There's many ways of going about it where they are delivering that offering. And this is where you're able to exponentially grow your reach, your impact, and obviously grow your revenue and profits.
So then at what point is a business, let's say, out of growth mode and into scale mode? Because I feel like there may be some confusion for some businesses out there.
Yeah, so I talk about 5 phases of scaling your business. So there's a couple models that just are not scalable. And so if you are the operator, if you're the one that is delivering your product or service, you cannot scale that. So if I'm an accountant and I'm working with my clients, well, there's only so much time in the day. So this is about phase 2. Phase 1 is just total startup. You're doing everything. Phase 2, you have a few employees, but you're still approving everything going in and out of your business. You're still delivering the product or service. Still not scalable. So at this point, to move into phase 3, where you start building teams, you have to start training other accountants. You have to start taking your clients and handing them over to other people on your team, which is very scary. This is probably, this is such a critical point why so many business owners don't do it, because it's our baby and we've worked so hard to build this thing, and is someone else going to screw it up? But the truth is that if you bring on great people and you have a great culture and you really work on your leadership, then you actually, sometimes these people can be better than you, and you can work to be the visionary of the company, really working on the business. And so, for instance, in my business, I don't work directly. I'm involved in our community, like I'm very connected in the community, but I don't privately coach our clients anymore. I have great mentors that do that. So that's the shift that has to happen, is that you're basically replacing yourself.
So, I mean, what are some of the biggest reasons you've seen businesses, sorry for the rhyme, and to flip and to like play on your book, what's the biggest reasons you've seen businesses fail to scale?
Mm-hmm. Well, one is what I just told you. It's very scary to let go. And a lot of it's just habit. Like, think about the reason you started your business. Many people start their business because, they've got something, they're very passionate about it, but they're a lot of times in survival mode. Like, I've got to make this happen, like I've quit my job and I've got to be able to, this has got to be able to pay for itself and cover our expenses and so forth. Once you get to a point where you're starting to build a team and replace yourself, add new revenue streams that might have a recurring revenue, you cannot be approaching it from that place. You can't be approaching it from desperation. You may still not have much cash flow because, as you're growing, businesses are often investing in a lot of things, but you have to come to it from a strategic place. And making that shift from entrepreneur to like CEO of a company, a lot of that is mindset that has to happen. And we're such creatures of habit, is that once one bad thing happens, which could be daily, bad is not the word, one challenge happens, we fall back into our old, oh, I'm going to jump in and fix it. And, oh, I'm going to fire that person because they made a mistake, sort of thing. So it really is, making that shift from boss to leader, and being able to let go. Those are some of the biggest mistakes. Now there are many others too, but those are some of the real big ones.
I want to go deeper into that, but before, I'm trying to think, the listeners that are listening right now, if there's some listeners who, let's say, they may be at that point where they're starting to scale, right? They're at that point where they're trying to like build out and get out of the entrepreneur zone. What can they do now to prepare themselves to capitalize for when it's time to actually scale?
Yeah. So, well, first get my book, Scale or Fail. That will help you a lot. I think if I had understood this in the early part of my journey, it would have saved me so much headache and heartache. I mean, in my early days, just from the stress of it and working day and night, I ended up having a terrible car accident. I mean, so I think understanding that there are 5 phases and you're in phase 1 or you're in phase 2, to understand that this isn't like, if you make these tweaks, it will move you along the journey. But because we think this is the world and this is how it is, we live there, and oftentimes the businesses die there. So if they just have an awareness of these are the phases, and then when you make this tweak, you get to this phase, and then when you make, you know what I mean, and you begin to evolve, you have a roadmap to follow. And you don't have to wait until you get to this point where you're so burned out to go, oh, now how do I scale? You may not be ready to do it here, but you understand that's coming down the pipeline.
Got it. So have a plan of attack.
100%.
I mean, going back to what you said earlier, you're 100% right. So many times I've seen business owners stand in their own way, right? They're in their own way of success. They can't delegate, like you said. They can't hire teams, but they also can't do it all themselves, right? So they're in that stuck position of, I can't do this all, and I'm bad at delegating. What's your advice to those owners? How do you get them out of that?
Yeah. So, I think to understand that the people that you surround yourself, first of all, they don't have to be you, and you don't want them to be like you. Like, they bring a new perspective to the table. And I've had so many business owners over the year that I've worked with that would give me the yes, but, well, I have to be the one doing this, or, oh no, this is going to cost and I don't have the money for it, And then once they finally make that hire and they do delegate, they're like, I don't know how I functioned without this help. And I'm actually making more money now. So it truly is our own view of it. And to understand that when you start building a team, you're creating fuel for the growth of your company. People are often thinking, well, if I've got to pay someone $50,000, I don't have $50,000, so I've got to save up until I get $50,000. No, it's $50,000 divided by 12. And if they're not working out, you can let them go at month 3 if they're not performing. And that, whatever the math is around that, let's say 4,000 a month. I'm just making up numbers, could be more, but let's say it's 4,000 a month. They need to, whoever you hire, if you train them right and you help give them goals and a direction and they're clear on their role, they should be helping to create a lot more than $4,000 a month, $3,000 to $10,000. I mean, sorry, 3 to 10 times what you're paying them, whether it's in direct revenue, whether it's in you are freed up. So now you can go build those relationships. If I was in the weeds of the company right now, you and I would not be having this interview because I know that our clients are being taken care of.
Yeah, I love the last part you said there was time. Time is a currency, right? So whether they're giving you back revenue or time or giving you time, people don't see it as that. There's two types of currencies in life. Well, that's it. Money and time. That's it. Everything else, everything has a cost, and it costs one of those two things.
And time is more valuable.
I agree. I totally agree.
Money will come and go.
I'd rather pay for someone who could give me back, or save me 5 years of growth, of growing pains to get me to 5 years ahead, or give me back hours in my day. I'd love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have to look at the value of your time. And I always tell my clients, just pretend like your value is $5,000 an hour. It's $5,000 an hour. We've just upped your rate. And would you be on Verizon making that call, sitting on hold? Would you be booking those flights? Would you be driving to the post office if your value was $5,000? Now, how do you want to get to that rate? Is that you value your time.
So why do you think so many business owners or entrepreneurs try to go at it themselves? I mean, you're a coach. They don't invest in coaches. They don't invest in help. They don't invest in marketing or advertising. But I mean, you put out a really good post on Instagram recently where it was like, they won't do all that, but when they build a house, they'll hire a contractor and a team. They don't sit there and start hammering every nail in themselves. But when it comes to building their business, they try to take that all on themselves.
Mm-hmm. It's all comes down to money mindset. It really comes down to money mindset. And I really feel that business owners need to be working on their mindset every day. Just like you brush your teeth, you need to be reading books on money mindset. You need to practice investing because it's a habit. And I know in the early days, look, I was a single mom for 12 years and it was all up to me. I didn't have any help at all. And so in the beginning, investing, of course, was a little scary. I remember, hiring someone to help me publish a book. And, that was going to be like $5,000, which it's a lot more now. And things like that. And I remember, but now that's like, we do that constantly. Because what I know is it's like a stair step. If I invest this, it's going to take me to here. And then I invest here, it takes me here. If you work with a mentor, for instance, that has been there and done it, it's like taking an escalator or elevator to the top floor. Or you can take years for steps at a time, which you're losing potentially millions of dollars by doing it that way. So you think that you're saving money by doing it yourself, but you're actually losing so much money. Not to mention being able to tap into someone else's wisdom so that they can say, don't do that. That is a costly mistake and you're going to go down the wrong road for years, So it really is a mindset. A lot of it is what we were raised with. I have a client I was just talking to the other day that's in our Pinnacle, and she's doing really well. And she, her dad was raised in the Great Depression, like a lot of us with parents. And she had this habit, though, even if she had a lot of money in the bank account, she would still be afraid, still have visions of being that bag lady walking around New York City with a shopping cart. So a lot of it is just what's ingrained in us, and having that awareness and be willing to do it anyway, even though we're afraid.
So talk about that, because I know one of the things you talk a lot about is breaking through fear barriers and the importance of taking risks. How do you train someone or coach someone to take risks and to break through fear? Like I'm sure there's an entrepreneur listening right now who's like, yeah, that's me. How do you break through from all that?
Mm-hmm. It's, in the action of it, the confidence goes up. I can tell you that is understanding that fear is a really natural human emotion and that we all have it. And even the people you see on TV, even the people you look up to have lots of fear. Even Barbara Streisand apparently has incredible fear before she gets out and performs, probably like the highest icon in the musical world of the past several decades. So it doesn't mean that your fear is necessarily going to go away, but you also have, by facing it enough times, that you don't die from it. Like, I don't know that every time I do something that 100% that it's going to work out the way that I want, but I know if I do it, I'm going to gain tremendous insight and I'm going to be better prepared for the next time. So the first time I have a big event that's coming up in a few weeks for business owners. It's our 10th year leading this event, and we'll have hundreds of business owners on. But the first year I did that 10 years ago, oh my God. I mean, I was like in tears. My husband's like, "That's it. You're not doing this again." I was terrified. It was a tremendous amount of pressure because we have to fill the room and, this is virtual, what we're doing now, but still every time I've done something for the first time, it's terrifying, but to me, it's about connecting to your why. How badly do you want it? And when your desire for change grows stronger than your fear, or your desire for manifesting that why is stronger than your fear, you're going to do it anyway. There's a saying, do it afraid. Just do it while you're in fear. And, and also seeing that other people have done it, that definitely opens the door to possibility.
And I guess every action you take, like you said, breeds confidence, right? Like, you now know to trust your gut. When you see risk, I'm sure all the past decisions you made come into play when you decide or you have to make a decision.
Yeah, you know what I have noticed, because for instance, that first event, I remember I was going to owe like $100,000 within 2 weeks, something like that. And at the time I was like, that was a major gulp. And I was supposed to have like 100 people in the room. We were like a month out. I had 20 people signed up. Okay. I'm starting to get in desperate mode. I thought, I'm going to have to walk around with a sandwich board downtown San Diego and sell hotel rooms, because we had committed to all these hotel rooms, and so my fear level was up here. Ended up that the event was so successful. It was such an amazing transformational experience for me. And we ended up way surpassing that $100,000. But I really believe the level of the leap you take is commensurate with what your return is. So if you take a little leap, you'll get here, which is great. You're moving in the right direction. But if you're willing to take those big leaps, and surround yourself, I had a great event team. Like, I surrounded myself with people that had done it, so I wasn't totally lost, that helped me with making an offer and all those kinds of things.
Because you made an important point, right? You took a leap and it worked out. But let's play, hypothetical here, for example. And I'm sure you probably have a situation where it's happened. Let's say it didn't work out. Let's say you would have lost 100,000. How do you think and how would you coach your clients to rebound from that?
Yeah. So look, I've definitely, over 37 years, do you ever think I've done some things that just fell flat? I have, and even invested a bit of money in it as well. But every single one of those, it still moved me forward. Because let's say that event had not worked out, let's just say, I would have made incredible connections that I could go back to. Let's say that we're at the event and talk to them further, and probably would have been able to, help them take the next step to work with me if they were the right fit. So I wouldn't just say, oh, done, flop. I would say, okay, so what are we going to do now? What can we learn from this? What are some new things that we could implement? And because I always operate that way, I always know that it's going to work out in one way or another. It may not work out exactly how you think it will be, but it will open to another door. And some of the best innovations in my company or with our clients is when we do hit a wall and we go, oh God, I really need to figure this out. And something even better comes out of it. So,
I mean, I heard it said it's only a failure if you don't learn from it.
yeah, exactly. And what are you going to create from it? So for instance, with COVID, and we're mentoring all these hundreds of business owners. And come March, we have clients that have brick and mortar, we have restaurants, we have, a lot of people that were directly affected. So they could have, shut their doors, all like so many business owners have done, but we wouldn't let them think that way. We said, okay, what are we going to do now? What new revenue streams can we create? What are new ways that we can reach your customer? What, oh, you were going to go virtual next year? No, you're going virtual now. And so you're taking your 600 therapists, and now you have a virtual company that is worldwide instead of local in your community. So there's always a solution. And to me, it's really not a failure, even though I call my book Scale or Fail. It's just an interim pivot, in a sense, to something better.
You talked about visionaries, and I just recently finished the book Rocket Fuel. And I'm not sure if you, but I'm sure you've read it. Where there's the two roles, right? There's the visionary and the integrator. What's your best piece of advice to have those two work together properly?
Yeah, so I think that's such a great question. So I'm definitely the visionary. We went to Mexico recently on vacation, my husband and I, and what do? As I'm relaxing, I come up with this whole new thing that I want to implement in the company. And, but then it's like, how is this weaved into the deliverables or the systems and so forth without overwhelming your team? How do you do it so that you're not having your team go, well, I thought we were doing this, and how is it, how is this? So having that, those people on your team, if you're the right brain CEO, you need some left brain people around you to say, okay, how do we break this down? How do we deliver it? How do we do it with overwhelming our team or confusing our customer? But here's the key thing. You need to make sure. So I have a COO that is like my right-hand person. I have 3 admin people on the team. Now, early on, it was me and an assistant, and that was it. I hired a COO years ago, and it was not a good fit at all, because I would get all excited. I would, and that's what I love about being a business owner. And this person would say, well, let me just tell you why this is not going to work. And it was constant. And I found myself really disliking my work, because I thought, well, this is a real buzzkill, And so that obviously didn't work out. Now, I definitely think an integrator's role is to also look at, okay, what's this going to cost? Does this make sense to do this right now? Could there be a better way? But everybody has to be on board in your company with the same vision moving forward. Otherwise, you are so going to bump heads. But if you as a visionary think that you're going to be the integrator too, this is, you wonder why things don't get done well, or you're doing things that they're not your superpower. Find somebody else that is their superpower.
We'll wrap it up with an important point on mindset, because I'm a big believer in it, and you were talking a lot about it. I've seen businesses grow to 8 figures plus, and the successful people I've had on this podcast, including yourself, all share the common view of mindset being super, super important. As someone who's helped businesses scale, what's the biggest change in mindset do you think you need in order to scale?
I think mindset is everything. It's what I work on when I go to bed at night. It's what I work on in the morning before I get up, whether I'm listening to audio or I'm visualizing my big picture vision. To scale, you have to be willing to see the unseen. I have a saying, make decisions from where you're going, not from where you're at. So the mindset is critical because the difference is that if somebody is like, well, this is reality and this is what I'm looking at and this is what we're dealing with, where a visionary is going to be able to say, well, I don't see this right now, but I definitely visualize this big picture there. So I do think it is critical to have somebody, whether it's a coach or mentor, that is able to hold a bigger picture for you if you can't. We have at our event coming up, Naveen Jain is going to be speaking. And I don't know if you know Naveen, but he is a billionaire many times over. And he talks about he just wants to help 1 billion people. It's not about building that $100 billion company. And he's working on how do we live on Mars, okay? So be willing to realize there is no ceiling, and absolutely anything you want to create is possible. If you have envisioned it, it's there. You just have to bring it in. And so you have to constantly be engaged in these kinds of conversation. In a sense, you have to train your brain to think this way, because we're wired for fight or flight. So we will automatically go to, oh, this is what's not working. I mean, even my brain does that. I have to work on this stuff all the time, just like I would go to the gym. And it's that important. And it's the interesting thing is that a lot of business owners think, oh, I just want to learn how to do that Facebook ad thing. That's going to be my answer for growth. No, it's not. It's the mindset, because when you are open to possibilities, your mind starts finding those bigger solutions that are well beyond the Facebook ad.
And even if the expression, shoot for the moon, land in the trees, or something like that, the higher your goal, the more it'll propel you forward, no matter what, even if you never reach that goal. You open this up, so I'm going to ask you, how do you work on your mindset daily?
Yeah, so I'm constantly reading books. I'm constantly listening. Audibles are great for me because I'm super ADD. So I literally fall asleep like listening to a book. I have my headset next to my bed and I will pull that up in the morning and listen. I am also in a mastermind. I surround myself with big thinkers, and I get jazzed when I hear what they're up to. It very much inspires me. The other thing too is I'm a trapeze artist, and I've been doing that for 20 years, more than 20 years. And 3 years ago, I built a trapeze rig, a full, like in the circus size trapeze rig in my backyard. And this all came from visualization and manifestation. I'm a big believer in that. And so every time I climb that ladder, every time I take that leap, I scare the heck out of myself. But it's an opportunity for me to break through my own fear. And so I think doing something physical that's in your body, that's not just from the neck up, it becomes very tactile. And that has helped me become more courageous just in my everyday life. I mean, you don't have to become a trapeze artist.
I'm saying there's no way I could end the podcast on just that. So I got to ask, how does one take up trapeze and become a trapeze artist? Like, how does one just start and be like, that's what I want to do?
Yeah, I don't know that there is just this regular way of the path to becoming a trapeze artist, but I was a gymnast growing up. I had a set of uneven bars in my backyard that my gym teacher built for me out of plastic tubing. And I just, then I went on to compete on a competitive gymnastics team for years. And I just always loved that. And then I went to Club Med over 20 years ago to get over a broken relationship. And, as I'm walking around there pretty miserable and heartbroken, I look up and see this massive thing of metal and see these people swinging. I go, oh my God, like people can actually do that? Because I was always enamored by the trapeze and the circus. So, I start doing there. They invited me to be in the show, and then I
Wow.
have to learn how to do it. So I ended up working with the 5-generation circus family, and as my coach, Richie Guyona, and they flew with Ringling Brothers for years, performed with the Queen here in LA. So I would drive from San Diego to LA every single week to train. So I'm a big believer of having a coach in, a lot of areas of your life. So
talk about taking a leap.
It's a real leap. That's why on the cover of my book, and of course I don't have it right here, but there, no, it's not over here. It's, I have the trapeze on the cover of the book because that's what I do.
Love it. Allison, thank you so much. For the listeners who want to reach out to you and they want to learn more, how can they find you?
Well, you can find me on all social under Allison Maslan with 2 L's. And you can also check out my website, which is pinnaclegn.com for Pinnacle Global Network. Pinnacle, the letter G, the letter N.com.
Love it. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time today. And thank you for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you so much.